Policing the police, well, that's exactly what new legislation passed by the New York City Council last night would do. Overnight, the council voted in favor of the Community Safety Act. The act, it's got two parts here. One, it'll create the position of an inspector general. Essentially, that would police the cops when it comes to stop and frisk. The other, it would make it easier for people who feel that they've been victims of police bias to seek justice, and will expand the definition of racial profiling to include age, gender, sexual orientation, and immigrant status. Now, after the vote, Mayor Bloomberg, he released a scathing statement, quote, "Unfortunately, these dangerous pieces of legislation will only hurt our police officers' ability to protect New Yorkers. We've demonstrated why these bills are bad for public safety, and I will veto this harmful legislation." Now, our own Dominic Carter has been covering this from the trial throughout. He picks the story up from there.
Well, good evening to you, Richard. This is quite a contentious issue, and right now we will hear reaction from both sides of the aisle. First up, candidate for mayor, Republican candidate for mayor, former Deputy Mayor Joe Lhota. Mr. Lhota, you're running for mayor, but in your opinion, did the council do the right thing?
The council absolutely did not do the right thing. In fact, I think the Community Safety Act is the most misnamed bill I've ever heard. It's making the city of New York not safer. It's making every community in the city of New York actually unsafe.
And why do you say that? Look,
the bills, all the bills, when you look at it all together, their sole purpose was to handcuff the New York City Police Department from doing their job. The officers are going to be afraid to do anything because of the fact that they could be held personally liable. The idea of having an inspector general is a waste of money. When I'm mayor, I will have oversight over the police department. I don't need some third party having oversight over the police department, questioning the police commissioner's strategies and approaches. That's not what an inspector general is supposed to do. It's a complete waste of money. If you want to look at prosecuting folks, we've got 5 district attorneys, 2 U.S. attorneys, the Attorney General of the state of New York, the Attorney General of the United States of America, all of whom have some level of oversight over the NYPD. If they did their job, you wouldn't need an inspector general.
Mr. Lhota, what about the rights of the community, in which the rights of thousands and thousands of people that have done nothing wrong, so apparently their rights were violated?
Look, I don't believe their rights were violated. Stop, question, and frisk is something that requires that the officers within the NYPD, anyone involved, should be properly trained on how to use it. The Supreme Court of the United States in Terry v. Ohio gave out the rules that allow police officers to stop, to question, and if necessary, frisk. No one has shown that in any way, shape, or form the NYPD has violated what the Supreme Court put down in those rules. We're now, the folks who want to end stop, question, and frisk, those who want to say that what they've been doing is not constitutional, and it's unfortunate that we're in this situation. Proper training of our police officers will, and also communication with the community about what is happening and why it's happening and why the need for proactive policing is going to be absolutely needed going forward. But quite honestly, the bills are going to make it harder and harder to keep the city safe. I guarantee you we're going to see crime potentially increase because of this.
You really believe that crime will go up?
You know me, Dominic.
Yeah.
I always tell the truth. I always tell you what I believe. Absolutely, I believe that. This type of bill, these types of the Inspector General, the whole Community Safety Act, everything that was passed at 2 o'clock in the morning by the New York City Council endangers the city of New York. And when you endanger the city of New York, you run the risk of seeing an increase in crime.
Now, for the other side, Richard, remember, there is still the pending stop and frisk federal lawsuit before Judge Sheindlin, in which the plaintiffs want a federal monitor for the NYPD. And, Richard, that is still the case. Counselor, your reaction to what the city council has done?
Well, I think it's a momentous momentous occasion, really, in the history of police accountability in the city of New York. I mean, this is really the product of, I'd say, more than a decade's work of organizing and education and advocacy around holding the NYPD accountable to the public, and also, making sure that what they're doing is fair, constitutional, and, complies with the law. And that's really all that these bills are designed to do. They're designed to ensure that the NYPD behaves in a legal, constitutional way. They're not in any way restricting what police can already do lawfully.
But the mayor argues that this goes way too far, and it could actually cost a police officer his or her life.
Okay, I mean, to us, that's just nonsense.
I'm a little confused here, Counselor. I watched you, before Judge Scheinlin, argue the federal case. Now, you want a federal monitor for the NYPD. So you're telling me there's going to be a possibility of a federal monitor and an inspector general?
Well, the two things are very complementary. And actually, the first thing I'll say is that what we're looking for is a very time-limited sort of monitoring. In other words, the federal court would order changes and would set a time period in which those changes would have to be implemented, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, something like that. And during that time period, when the implementation is underway, there would be somebody appointed by the court to make sure that the changes are implemented. That person is not going to be a permanent position. It's not going to be somebody who's going to be around for decades, overseeing the police department. The police department is not going to be placed under permanent federal oversight. That person would be there, or that group of people would be there for a short period of time to make sure the changes are implemented. Going forward, long term, though, we think it's absolutely essential to have an oversight body in the city of New York that can report to the public on what the police department is doing in terms of its policies and practices.
And so, Richard, the ball is now in Mayor Bloomberg's court. He will veto these bills, and then they will go back to the city council for a possible override. Reporting from Lower Manhattan, I'm Dominic Carter. Richard, let's go back to you.
Dominic, a busy man today. He also caught up with some other folks very invested in the mayoral race. We're going to have that for you in the coming days. All right. From a math standpoint, it looks, at least, if yesterday was a good test vote, they get enough votes to override the mayor on this thing.
Well, both of them passed with an override-proof majority. The Inspector General bill did a little bit better, and so if any votes go back the other way on the override bill, the IG bill may pass, the other one may not.
I can't come up with a scenario OB where the next mayor, whoever the mayor is going to have the same policy in place here. Between the court cases, between the council, between the political pressure to get elected in the city and what the polls say, status quo will not prevail.
Well, you got a couple things here. First off, this is definitely the People's Republic of City Council again. They're living up to that standard at this point of doing everything they can as far left as possible. It's an election year, so we expect this kind of activity from them. I'm kind of curious how this impacts Quinn overall at this point. I think as Speaker and allowing this vote to take place, that's got to, if the opponents hit her the right way, the PBA is going to go after her. If they put some money behind that, she says, oh yeah, I'm for Ray Kelly. Well, every poll we've seen, no matter whether Ray's running for mayor or not, his favorability is way up there. She starts doing this kind of stuff. He speaks out against that. PBA goes against her. That's going to take her down a few more points again in this poll.
Oh, she's really between a rock and a hard place on this one. And I think she's only helped by this one. But on the flip side, she has seen as basically symbiotic with the mayor, and she's definitely broken ranks.
You think this helps her?
Well, I think she needed something, okay? And I think that if you look at every poll and every trend, she's been going south. I think this, at least, for good or for bad, she's going to be seen as the person who shepherded, stop, and frisk the change of policy in place. And I know from every poll I've seen, most New Yorkers don't agree with the current policy.
And that's what I'm saying. I think her bridge that she should have stopped at was the IG. She had put that out there. She had pushed it already. She should have not let the second vote take place. Maybe. And I think that would have been leadership.
Well, I will tell
that
you,
would have been saying the IG is enough, and that's what I'm sticking for.
This is the perfect segue, because we will be speaking with City Council Speaker Christine Quinn, and we're going to be bringing that interview on Tuesday. Again, between now and then, we're going to be keeping an eye on the council here. The mayor has promised, and we fully expect him to veto the legislation that comes across his desk. The question is, what happens from there? We're going to be talking to her about a whole host of things, including her opinion on Mr. Anthony Weiner. Again, that coming up on Tuesday. Now, when we come back here, Usually we don't follow state politics some other places, but what happened in Texas doesn't stay in Texas. It was a moment that has gone viral, or 11 hours if you want, that's gone viral. A Lone Star State Senator taking a stand, attempting to keep abortion rights safe in her state here. We're going to come back with that conversation after this.